Well, hello, everyone. I am really excited today because I brought a friend. My dear friend Valerie Williams is a licensed therapist and coach, and I thought it would be wonderful to get expert perspective on how we can cope with our parenting and our lives while we're all locked in and shut down. There's a lot of advice flying around, but I thought for our community, it'll be cool to just have a chat with someone that has expert information on practical tips that we can take to make sure that we stay sane. So, Valerie, say hello to everyone.
Hey everyone, I'm so happy to be here.
Thank
Happy to
you.
connect.
Awesome. I've got just two quick questions because I don't want to take too much time. The first one is really around our famous mom problem, mom guilt, right? So we used to all want to spend all the time with our families. We would be at work thinking, oh, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. Now we're all home and we're still feeling mom guilt for all the things we can't do and all the fun Pinterest projects we thought, if only I had time, I could do it. And I have time, but I'm not doing those. So help
So
us, Valerie. How do we rationalize in our minds what's happening? Why can't we still get to all the stuff? Should we be trying to get to all the stuff? What about our parenting should be adjusted or updated while we navigate through this pandemic?
mhm. So I think, and just one thing I'll mention, in addition to being a therapist and a coach, I am also a parent, and I'm a
Mm.
parent to two boys. I'm raising smart boys, not girls,
Yes.
raising smart boys. My oldest is in college. My youngest is 12, so he is here at home with us in the day to day. I think one thing that I'm recognizing is we don't have as much free time as everyone says that we do. The weekends, and certainly if we were busy like with evening activities, we
Yeah.
have evenings are a bit freer.
Yep.
But in terms of the day, most of us are still working and maintaining the same schedules that we did when
Yep.
we were in the office. So there's this false perception that, everyone just has time to, drink wine and build Legos all day. And that's just, that's not
Not
facts.
real.
So I think we need to be realistic about kind of the time that we do have to give. It's a little bit more than usual, but we don't have, this 100% bandwidth that we can now offer to
Yep.
our children. So we absolutely need to give ourselves grace and appreciating the fact that we are still busy
Yeah.
because a good majority of us are fortunately still employed and working full time. We are still
Yeah.
working full time, so virtually.
Yeah.
So what's important is then when do you shut down and when do you shut off?
Mhm.
Because what I'm hearing from people who are working from home is that they are, in many cases, working even later than they were when they were in the office. So if mom guilt is something that you struggled with, and you're not only working all day but working longer than usual, then that's obviously not going to
It's
help with
not
the
gonna change. Yeah.
process. And then you have the source of your guilt in your face,
Yeah.
probably chasing you around the house all day,
Yes.
reminding you of why you're feeling guilty in the first place. So I think now is an important time to create some structure and boundaries. I think most of us who are, homeschooling, we've heard that, that it's really beneficial to keep the kids on a schedule. One of the things that I did with my little guy, we created a schedule for the full day, pretty much through 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
I've tried to craft my own schedule behind his as well. So
Mm.
that walk time at 5 o'clock is for both of us and not just him.
Gotcha.
So being intentional about structuring your day as well as your child so that it's built in, because we know that for a lot of us, if it's not in your calendar, sometimes it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So just being intentional about creating those boundaries, like this is a time that I stop work, and this is a time that I can be dedicated to, to my family in ways that I couldn't before because now I'm not having to rush to activities,
Or commute.
out
Yeah.
home or commute. But the reason why we don't have time to do those Pinterest boards and those, self-interest projects is because we are using that time, most of us, for family time.
Yeah. Yeah.
as opposed to, once you're finished working, you will probably feel a bit selfish and guilty if you use every day of that time for your own interests versus your kids.
That's a great segue to just thinking about the kids. So they see the CNN and they're hearing things. I think the older the kids are, they understand the gravity, especially teenagers that are experiencing their senior year in a way that they never imagined they would, right? So this is more real to them than maybe the younger kids. How much do kids really need to know? A lot of it is heavy, right? We see the news. X amount of people have died today, due to the pandemic. And even for adults, that's a lot to process and carry. And then imagining how the kids might be processing it themselves. Is there a way that we should be talking to them about this that's healthier than not? Should we be waiting for them to ask us questions, or should we be proactive about sharing more details?
So I think one thing we can agree on is that kids hear a lot and they know a lot, and probably a lot more than we ever give them credit for. And to your point, we're listening to CNN, all day. I finally shut this off.
Stop. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get
Stop.
on film. But they're hearing it all. And even if CNN isn't playing on the background, they're hearing our conversations with family and friends. So again, they hear more and they know more than what we give them credit for. But what they're looking to us for is for us to interpret and give meaning
Mm.
to what they're hearing and what they know. And so how we interpret is based on definitely their age
Yeah.
and level of maturity, sometimes even more so than age. And I would suggest we be as honest and truthful as possible based on facts, not based on our own assumptions or fears. I wouldn't suggest creating the fairy tale interpretation
Yeah.
of this, because there's so much that we don't know that we would want to stick with the facts in case something changed. Because
Mhm.
you can't even have a conversation with your child right now and say, we're so far removed. We're, mommy and daddy's safe and you're safe and everything is going to be fine and we'll continue to eat. In most cases, we hope that is true.
But
But
you don't know.
an unprecedented time. We don't know, and we have little to no control over it. So I certainly wouldn't recommend that anyone panic. I would suggest that you present information in a balanced way. And make sure, again, going back to what we just talked about as far as modeling. So if you're excited and very anxious about it, you will probably want to take some time and calm down before you have a conversation with your kid. But at the same time, be proactive in having those conversations. So I think you asked, should we wait for them to ask or should we tell them? I think we should be doing both.
Mm.
I think we should be checking in, just kind of, hey, like, what are you thinking or what have you heard? And I would suggest talking about it in two ways. So I would encourage them to give them an opportunity to talk about what they heard for one,
Mhm.
what they think about it, and then separately what they feel about it, because what they think and feel are two totally separate things. And I encourage, for moms to take that time to the difference, because we're consuming a lot of information all at once,
Mhm.
far more than we have the ability to process. And
Gotcha.
so during that self-care time that we're taking, for ourselves, we need to be processing the reality of what's happening, and the intensity of it all and the potential impacts, both good and bad. And you can be a positive person, but be realistic as well. And so having those moments, maybe it's dinner time, like don't spring it on it, but maybe that's part of your, built-in family time, that during dinner we'll have a conversation around, what corona news did we hear today? Did it raise
Mhm.
any questions? And then you give them an opportunity to ask questions. I would just be careful with sharing information that's based on your assumptions,
Mm.
whether good or bad, because again, we don't want to glamorize, but we don't want to minimize, or we don't want to kind of over engineer this thing either.
Right.
If you're talking to older children, great conversation starters. I
Yeah.
mean, this everything that's happening just lends to such rich dialogue that you can have with older children.
Yeah.
global impacts
Yeah.
and socioeconomic status and the
Yeah.
healthcare
Yeah.
system and things
Yeah.
along those lines. So you want to, be that interpreter for your child, interpret it in a way that's appropriate for their level of maturity,
Yeah.
and be as truthful and factful as possible, and minimize, dialogue that's based on your assumptions.
Yeah. Okay. That really, really helps. And those questions resonate with me, differentiating between what you think and how you feel. That's not something that I remember to do often. But as you say it, I realize, yeah, the answers to those two things can be very different. So I appreciate you sharing that. And
Yeah.
thank you for all your insights. This is really, really helpful and at least gives some tools that we can readily start to use. I don't know if anyone's counting, but I think we're in week 4.
Yeah.
It's all blending together. But this is starting to be just what it is now, right? It's the novelty is worn off, and it's okay, time to start to figure out how we cope for real, because we don't know how long this is going to be. So I appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. And just know that, any insight that I share is just based on my own experience and how I'm managing and processing. So it's not easy, even when you do have tools, but you have to be thoughtful
Yeah.
and deliberate about kind of how you manage situations like these.